Welcome to DeFi by Design, where we talk all things blockchain and cryptocurrency while striving to educate, empower, and enrich.
It's your boy Andy, and welcome back to the DeFi Slate YouTube channel. Smash the like button on this video, that really helps us out, and sit back and enjoy the content. Thank you very much.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the DeFi by Design podcast, episode 94 here today, talking about a lot of important things that you guys need to know about staying safe as a user of some of these protocols, for protocols and teams as well. There's been a lot of interesting kind of happenings going on recently in the NFT space. Actually, yesterday, some of the Pudgy Penguin community and a couple others were airdropped these fake soulbound tokens, which then led them to a phishing link, which then drained their wallet. So obviously, you know, hardware wallets are going to help you guys a lot with those types of things, but just kind of staying in the know for how we can prevent some of these hacks, exploits that have really done a lot of damage to the ecosystem in 2022. I mean, we've seen it firsthand on some of our accounts, some of our close friends, and then everything else. So excited to dive into how we can keep you guys safe. We're here with Dom from Lossless and of course Rob. So good morning, Rob.
Morning. Yeah, such an important topic today. Like Andy said, you know, this is kind of up close and personal. And I actually saw an infographic, I think it was yesterday, put out by DeFi Yield in their newsletter. And it kind of just described the I think it was over 9 figures of losses across several categories, phishing links, like stablecoin depegs, tons of hacks, exploits all over the place. It was an interesting infographic. Maybe we'll link it in the description. And it just highlights, you know, the course of over the last 6 months or so, the you know, just over and over again, the dominoes that have fallen both on centralized financial companies as well as decentralized smart contracts that have been drained or exploited in, you know, some way or fashion. So I'm super stoked to talk to Dom to see how we can maybe prevent this altogether or mitigate it. And hear about what Lossless is doing to improve the cause. So good morning, Dom. It's good to see you.
Yeah, so good evening from where I am. Hi, Rob, and hi, Andy. And thank you for inviting me here to this podcast. Well, just to simply introduce myself, I'm the CBDO at Lossless, and Lossless is a security-focused company providing all different kind of security tools for the entire infrastructure of blockchain in order to prevent different type of hacks and to provide services even for the project founders and also for the small traders, investors, and asset managers.
Awesome. So could you kind of describe how Lossless works, maybe in a few sentences, and then we can dive deep in, you know, some of the numerous applications that there are to apply what Lossless is building? Sure.
So Lossless production differs mainly into 2 separate products. The first one was our first product that we developed in early 21. It's aimed to protect individual tokens that project founders create for themselves to back up their business. So what Lossless protocol does, it works like a last line of defense. Say that your tokens get stolen and they are in the hacker's wallet. What Lossless protocol gives is the ability to recover those tokens back to the rightful owner. For that to happen, you have to have a snippet of code integrated into your token smart contract. So this was our first product that we developed. There are more than 30 projects currently active in the market that are utilizing this business, and close to 8 or 9 projects waiting on the line to deploy their newly created tokens that will also utilize this tool. And the second product that we have developed is called Aegis. It's also our most recently created tool and actually our most demanded product in the industry at the moment. Aegis is an intelligence, security, and monitoring tool. How it differs from the first product is that it is very easy to adapt and utilize it. You don't have to integrate it into any code levels. and you can use it even if you are a project owner, even if you are a trader, investor. And what it does is that this tool, you can connect numerous smart contracts to it and set up custom notifications and alerts, and it will notify you about suspicious activity which is happening around your monitored smart contract. And it is able to identify a hacker on chain even before it manages to steal those funds from the smart contract which you are monitoring.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
Interesting.
that's a very interesting application, specifically on the token side. We'll kind of dive into that one first, because I think the smart contract has tons of open-ended questions that are there, but specifically on the token one. So, are you guys able to recoup tokens that are only that only have the snippet of code for that individual protocol? So, in let's say an example, let's say users are depositing like let's say like Aave tokens on Aave. They have that snippet of code. Somehow there's a run on the Aave tokens or some sort of exploit, right? Only those Aave tokens would be able to get pulled back, not the other tokens in the money market as part of this example exploit. I guess, could you kind of elaborate specifically on an example that has already happened in the past, and then kind of how you guys work through that? I know on a bridge hack, you guys were able to kind of help a protocol out. So yeah, I'm curious exactly kind of how you guys could mitigate it on a token by token basis on a given protocol.
Of course. So it's also one of the bottlenecks that we had at the beginning is the adoption for the lossless protocol. In order to adopt this technology for your project's tokens, you have to implement the snippet of code before deploying the smart contract on to the main net. But in some cases, if you have an upgradable smart contract, you can upgrade your smart contract with lossless protocol technology at any point in time. So yeah, majority of the projects that have adopted this technology were very early stage, that have not created their token at first and just deployed it after talking to us. So for that reason, we had in our timeline another product to be developed, which will come live in about a month or two. It's called the token wrapping tool, which will allow for any existing token in the industry to use lossless technology. So if you have, for example, a USDC token, you can wrap it with lossless technology. And if your USDC gets stolen, you will be able to recover it. And as Andy mentioned, one of the examples with the bridge, this has happened last year on one of Harmony's bridges. Harmony bridge was hacked, and that bridge, during that hack, the hacker stole numerous different type of tokens from different projects. And well, lucky for us, one of those tokens already had lossless protocol integrated into their smart contract. And we saw that those tokens were stolen. We reported the hacker's wallet on lossless protocol website, and those particular tokens that were connected to the lossless protocol, they were frozen. All the other tokens that were stolen, they were not affected. They were then laundered and exchanged to a stable coin or to Ethereum or to Bitcoin, and they were lost. But the lossless protected tokens, once they were frozen, they were reviewed by the security committee, which works with lossless, and they identified that this was really a hack, and they voted on chain, saying that those tokens were stolen, and we allow for those tokens to be sent back to the rightful owner. Yeah.
And it sounds like the decision to freeze the tokens and return them to the rightful owner is made by a committee at Lossless. Maybe we could take some time to kind of like talk about how that committee is formed, who makes up that committee. And then I'm also curious, and I think you mentioned earlier, the implementation of the code snippet is made on a token by token level. So it's So I guess who is the one to implement that code snippet? Is it the deployer of the smart contract?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
And why is it that some of the Harmony tokens were why was it that some of the tokens on Harmony had this code snippet, but others did not? My understanding is those came from the same smart contract, but some of them had the code snippet and some of them didn't.
So all of those tokens that were stolen, they belong to different projects, and only one of those projects decided to integrate Lossless protocol, have this extra layer of security for their tokens. The others did not think about it, because that is a big issue currently in the industry. A lot of crypto players, founders of projects, they forget about security. They think it's unnecessary because it's a new technology. It's much more developed than the old fiat ecosystem. They think there will be no such issues as stolen assets. But actually, this is like a totally new playground. There are a lot of loopholes and problems left out on the code level, and we will see a lot more hacks coming to this industry in 2023. And I believe projects really do have to start thinking about security, because we talked, well, I'm going off the topic here, but we spoke to a lot of investors over the past month, and they said, well, one of their requirement is that we invest in projects which focus a lot on security, because those investors, they do not want to be, they do not want to be affected by all those hacks which are happening in the industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of something that's plagued, both the decentralized and the centralized ecosystem, and we see it particularly so kind of at the peak and the trough of some of these markets, when there's so much money locked in these Wild West playgrounds. It is very desirable to these hackers and these exploiters. There's a big prize on the other side. And then we see kind of similarly in bear markets, these hackers again kind of like kind of rise from the ashes once again, because there's not a whole lot of other opportunities where everything is going up. So some somewhat neutral actors in the past may resort to those bad actions going forward. And if you could kind of describe how that committee decides, what constitutes a hack, maybe like how this committee is formed, and if you can, a few examples of individuals who are on the committee.
Of course, yeah. So that is a very good question, and an important part of the Lossless protocol. It's the decision making of whether to send those tokens back to the owner or not, because Lossless protocol is quite decentralized, which allows for anyone to report and freeze those tokens on chain. They just need to stake quite a significant amount of LSS tokens in order to freeze those particular tokens that were reported. So for that reason, we have created this more of a decentralized mechanism to decide whether that report was legit or not. So we created 3 different parties, and each of those parties, they have one individual vote. One of those parties is the lossless company. The second party is the company behind the token whose token was stolen. And the third party is unassociated with the rest of the parties, is called the security committee. The security committee consists of 9 individual experts from different fields within the blockchain industry. We have members in that committee such as founder of Tornado Cash, legal counsel, global legal counsel from MakerDAO, co-founder and CTO of Polkastarter, and founder of DeFi Safety. Those are just a few names that I've mentioned, but all of those members, they have a lot of experience in white hat hacking, in reading transactions on chain and identifying if actions on chain are malicious or not.
Gotcha. That's
Got it.
yeah. I mean, that's the kind of decentralized way of going about it effectively, and um, I think a lot of that security stuff got lost in the sauce, if you will, in the hype of the bull run. I mean, I just remember that Robbie and I would always kind of preach the not your keys, not your coins, and kind of Ledger and Trezor, and you know, using revoke cash. And I mean, it even got to the point in DeFi somewhere where it was like, let's let a coder guy check the contract and post it on Twitter before going in, stuff like that. And now it's gotten so much more complicated where, I guess we've started to realize the risk of these kind of contracts. And the term smart contract has been all but all but created, but the reality is it's a dumb contract if the person who created it doesn't really know what they're doing. And so, I mean, you kind of got to take that with a grain of salt and go about that. So I'm curious, kind of from a user perspective as well as a protocol perspective, what are some things that you've seen that users can do to protect themselves, but also that protocols and developers can do to protect their users?
Well, if talking about the primary product, the lossless protocol for the tokens, well, for the developers and project founders, it's just to, think about utilizing lossless technology to integrate it into their token. We even have left this kind of a input in the code, which gives the option for the project founders to turn off or to turn on lossless technology within your smart contract. So if you do not want to have this kind of additional security layer for your smart contract, for your tokens smart contract, you can turn it off at any point in time. So we made it a very friendly kind of technology for the project founders. And for the users, well, you just have to follow the projects that have utilized and integrated lossless technology into their token, or you have to wait just a couple more months while we release the token wrapping tool, where you will be able to simply adopt lossless security to your tokens individually, because you will not need to be the owner of the token smart contract in order to adopt lossless technology. If you have your tokens in your wallet, you can simply wrap it with lossless technology, and your tokens will be protected, meaning that if they are stolen, you will be able to report it on lossless platform and recover them.
And is that a strenuous
that's
process?
super powerful for
Oops, sorry, Rob.
the as far as the wrapping tool is concerned. Is that something that is still implemented at the protocol level, or is that something that users can wrap on their own without any communication between developers and between the user and the protocol?
Yeah, so they can just wrap it on their own. You don't have to have a lot of technical experience in order to wrap your own tokens with lossless technology. It will all be done on the smart contract level, but that smart contract will be connected to a friendly website where you will be able to wrap those tokens very easily.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, because that is super powerful as it gives all of the users the ability to kind of lossify like their own tokens rather than making that decision up to the protocol. Now the users can do that on their own, independent of whether or not the protocol chooses to implement lossless technology. And I think the evolution of lossless technology is certainly moving in the right direction from just kind of like ability to implement this code snippet before the smart contract is deployed, and now you guys are giving upgradable contracts the ability to implement the code snippet as well. And soon you'll give that ability to the users to wrap their tokens and actually implement lossless technology without the protocol at all. So even if let's say like the composability of some of these wrap tokens aren't composable with some smart contracts where they are fully integratable with DeFi, I imagine we'll get to a place where some of these smart contracts can recognize certain types of tokens as the same, like a wrapped USDC that has lossless wrapped technology. We can get to a place where that type of token is composable with a native USDC token, and they can exist in the same liquidity pool, for example.
Yeah, well, that is a good point that you made here, Rob. Well, all the tokens which will be wrapped or currently have the lossless adoption implemented in them, they were previously an ERC20 based token, and a wrapped ERC20 token will be simply named LERC20, a lossless ERC20 token. And it doesn't change the fact that it's a different token standard. It is still supported by all the platforms that have supported ERC20. They will automatically support LERC20. So if you were able to, deposit your ERC20 token in your wallet before, you will be able to deposit your LERC20 token in your wallet as well. The compatibility is there.
Got it. Awesome. And that's super important for any protocols and developers that are listening. There's not a whole lot of downside to implement this type of technology, especially for a new project who's building from the onset and hasn't deployed the smart contracts and the token contract just yet. The time is really now to implement that type of technology, and not after the token is deployed, leaving it up to the users, or giving some vulnerability to an exploit, and then having to backtrack and try to implement the technology afterwards.
Of course. Yeah, that is a good point. We also spoke to a lot of big projects in the industry that were hacked for huge amounts of money, something like $5 million, $10 million, 20 or 50 or $100 million were stolen from them. And they were contacting us saying that, can you help us? We will do anything in our power to get those funds back or to adopt your technology. And most of the time we just said, you were too late at this point because you did not integrate lossless technology in that point. But in one case, it was last year when we worked with the Cream Finance. Cream Finance was hacked for about $80 million. We as well are able, to track and identify hackers on chain. We decided to review this incident of Cream Finance hack. We followed the steps of the hacker, which stole money from Cream Finance. We got a lot of information about that person individually who stole that money. We managed to contact him and convince him to send that money back, or we would give him over to the police. So thanks to him. He was quite friendly at that point. He said, I don't want to have problem with the police. He just gave all that money back, and then we gave it back to Cream Finance.
Yeah.
Wow. That is, that's amazing to kind of like go through the level of like forensics on chain. It's not very often that happens, especially crossing the bridge between the off chain and the on chain world, to both highlight those transactions, find the individual, and then call up the individual and say, you have the information regarding his identity, and it's in his best interest to return that money.
Yeah, and it's actually very hard to track those hackers on chain, and it's becoming more hard every day because hackers are, they are improving. They know better how to hide their steps, how to launder that money faster. So this manual recovery of funds, it's a very low chance, and as time goes by, it will almost be impossible in the future, I believe. Well, not impossible, but close to impossible. So for that reason, you always have to have an extra layer of security when you are working in finance, because, well, it's important.
Yeah. And I've kind of got some ideas off that topic as well. A lot of these hackers and exploiters kind of have gone rogue, and nobody knows who they are, right? They're just addresses on chain through centralized exchanges, through Tornado Cash, through here, through there. So my two questions for you along that line are: first, are exploiters and people who attack the protocol in some way, are they bad actors legally and liable for that? Or are they participating in a system that has an option that they were smart enough to find out to then abuse the system for a financial gain? So are they committing illegal crimes or is that kind of like a part of the system that is available to them? Obviously, no legal advice, financial advice there from you, but I'm just generally curious what your mental model is on those exploiters. And then also Tornado Cash. Like, do you believe that we should have a privacy tool like Tornado Cash for the blockchain? Do you think that Tornado Cash, obviously it's not around anymore, but do you think it was a net positive or a net negative for the ecosystem, right? Obviously it can be used by hackers, but also can be used by just the average folk. So I'm curious your thoughts on those two things.
Yeah. So regarding your first question, could you repeat that, Andy, please? The first question.
Yeah. Basically, the premise of it was: are exploiters of smart contracts acting in an illegal, bad actor fashion, or are they just playing the game as it is allowed to be played?
Yeah. So it's mostly case by case scenario. It depends on the hacked company, where it is registered, if it falls under some kind of legal position. But majority of blockchain is developed, and I believe all developers can agree that code is law, meaning that if there's kind of a loophole left in a contract, and if a person exploits that loophole, he just uses that loophole to gain value for himself. He didn't steal physically from them. He just played by the rules, and the rules here is the code written. So since there is not a lot of still legal input into the blockchain space, you have to be very careful. Still, this is the wild, wild west, and we have to be very careful. And for your second question about Tornado Cash, that tool can be used for good causes, but sadly, it was used a lot for bad causes, for laundering money. And should it be in this industry or not? I believe it should, but under some type of supervision and with extra rules implemented. But to have privacy and security, I believe, is important, and it's the right for every person in this planet. And as we develop and grow, privacy will be the most expensive thing that we will come around.
Interesting. That, again, not financial advice, but that makes an interesting case for Monero and some of these other privacy coins, if privacy is the most expensive thing, in the future. But I think your point of kind of regulation and probably some supervision over those privacy coins, privacy smart contracts is probably practical, if not, already in motion by some of the regulatory agencies that are in the regime. It seems like that was always kind of on the radar, that there was going to be regulatory enforcement on some of these privacy aspects. We've already seen that on Tornado Cash. So we'll kind of see if those regulations are enforced against some privacy tokens before they're enforced on like the general market and those that, may be considered securities. There's, kind of interesting takes on the privacy coins versus some of the other types of tokens, stable tokens. We're just seeing like a bunch of like subcategories of cryptocurrencies start to evolve. And I think, your point of case by case basis kind of applies to that as well, where, they're almost used for an entirely different purpose, even though kind of all of these tokens are considered cryptocurrencies. Stable coins are more of a currency. Monero and maybe wrapped Bitcoin are more of a commodity. And then, there's probably some securities in there as well. So we'll kind of see how all of that shakes out in terms of classifications. And then as well as legally, the bad actors at play, we tend to, I think the intuition is to call them bad actors, because they're not really playing the game fairly. Although it does seem like it is within the extent of the rules, and they're almost just seeing the rules a little bit more differently, or at least what's available to them to play. Maybe it is not really illegal by any legal standards, but is it moral or philosophically kind of correct? I'm not so sure. So again, I think you're totally right. It is a case by case basis on each of these exploits, and then how that evolves with respect to each of these token categories, and how those are viewed by regulatory agencies, by the law, and then by users of the protocols as well.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So as far as what Lossless is building, you guys are implementing the wrap token feature. Is there any one particular sector of the market? Maybe it's privacy coins, or maybe it's stable coins. What is the kind of the approach going forward for Lossless? I think you mentioned it's ERC20s and those across kind of like the EVM. Is there one particular category of tokens or users that Lossless is targeting as really receptive of the technology?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Lossless is not targeting a particular category of businesses in this space. Lossless is working towards general security and safety of the entirety of the blockchain space. But as we are developing something new, as security is new in blockchain, our steps are slower, they are smaller, so it takes a longer time to develop something and to create a working product. We are not just developing another exchange. We are not developing another staking platform or another OTC pool. We are creating something that was not there before. So we have to work from the very ground.
Definitely. Yeah, it is a blue ocean strategy in a field that, there's tons of demand. Like just over the last 6 to 8 months, I think the amount of hacks is probably more than we've ever seen in cryptocurrency and blockchain. FTX alone was one of the biggest financial meltdowns of all time. So if you couple the centralized exchange losses with the decentralized exchange and smart contract vulnerabilities, I think we get into the magnitudes of financial losses that are unseen in previous times. So a security company to try to secure each of those smart contracts and secure those losses, there is massive demand, and I'm really excited to see how Lossless fits into the crypto universe going forward.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rob.
Is there anything else that we didn't cover that is particularly on the agenda for Lossless?
Well, the other product that I mentioned, Aegis, it's another layer of security that we are currently providing for the industry. If we have time for that, I can give a quick introduction.
Yeah, please.
Sure. So as I mentioned before, Lossless protocol is sort of the last line of defense, which gives the ability to recover stolen funds. We were thinking for a very long time for a solution that would work more of a first line of defense, which is like preventing incidents, preventing hacks. So us as a company and our team, we are quite experienced in forensics and identifying and reading data on chain. So we have analyzed and read more than 100 different types of hacks. we have gathered that information to a single place, and we have built on it this new tool, Aegis. Aegis, as I mentioned before, is a intelligence security tool which reads on-chain data, and it is able to identify the intentions of a user by its actions, if his intentions are positive or negative, if he wants to exploit your smart contract or not. The current success rate of identifying the intentions of a user are about 60%, but we are still in version 1, and this percentage will be increasing. So what this means that this tool is working on a machine learning module which helps to prevent incoming exploits and block them out.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I mean, that's now taking into effect kind of like the machine learning and AI that advances in technology that, are starting to arise, and couple that with cryptocurrency and blockchain. And there's a really interesting formula there for innovation. So when you're going through this learning process to identify a hacker's intentions, you said you have about a set of about 100 hacks. Is there maybe I'm just going to take a stab at how this works, and then maybe you can correct and kind of tweak my understanding. There's the criteria of bad intentions, and then there's the criteria of good intentions, and you're taking those criteria and then you're running the hacks through that model to identify whether they were good or bad, and then based on the output, you're then back testing those hacks again to see how you can improve those criteria and get a higher success rate?
Yeah, that is correct. And those more than 100 hacks, it's not just any random hack, it's different types of hacks. So by reading them, we gathered the information, which is the patterns and algorithms that hackers usually take in order to exploit a smart contract. And most of the time, it's quite a similar pattern and algorithm, just it happens through different parties in the industry. They move money through different companies, but the steps, patterns, and algorithms, they are quite similar. So thanks to that, we are able, to identify what they are doing on chain. And of course, with this information, we have set a lot of different rules, and Aegis runs on those rules. It checks all mine transactions on chain and notifies you if those transactions are associated with your monitored smart contracts and if they should be looked at or they are good to go, and then they can go through the radar with no problem.
Yeah. It's it's bittersweet, right? Every time there's a hack, obviously there's a negative impact on the industry, but it means Aegis is getting better at identifying the hack. So there's some solace there, and we could have an entire other conversation on the intersection of AI and blockchain. So maybe next time we can talk more about that.
Of course.
But I think security is a great place to start.
Of course. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Definitely. How can our community find you? We have lots of protocols and developers that do listen, and some of them are in the early stages, and I'm sure could benefit from this technology. What is the best way to reach out to Lossless and get in contact?
Yeah. So very simply, you can go directly to our website, lossless.io. We have our email there. If you want to have a more direct contact with, for example, me, you can go to Telegram. I am always active in the Lossless general chat. You can find me on Twitter as Dodovano, or you can find me on LinkedIn as Dominicus Van Otterlo as well. So I'm active on almost on all social media. And if you have any questions or want to work with us, feel free to reach out to me or to our team members.
Awesome. That sounds great, Dom. Thanks. It was an absolute pleasure, and I feel like I learned a lot from this conversation.
Likewise, it was a real pleasure
thanks,
joining
Dom.
this podcast, and thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Andy.